Hello friends, Ash here. Welcome back to Gents. This is the clone chair. Why is it the clone chair? I don't know, I didn't really put any thought into it. But today we are gonna be talking about clones, specifically 10 different clones that every beginner needs to smell. So if you follow along with this video and you have smelled all of these clones, you are no longer a beginner, you have graduated. I'm not sure what to. Clonosaur. Sounded better in my mind, like connoisseur, clonosaur. Now it sounds like dinosaur. I'll have each one of the clones linked in the description below, so feel free to check them out down there. These are some really good ones, some of the most popular ones, some of the best ones on the market. And also I threw in a couple other ones that are not as well known that you should know about, some wild cards. Before we jump into the fragrances themselves, pause the video now if you would like some codes to use. Specifically, Triple Traders has a boatload of clones, and you can use the code GENTS for 10% off there, but there are other codes as well. Now, we're gonna do these in no particular order, but we are gonna start things off with the most obvious one, just to go ahead and get that one right out of the way, which is, of course, Armoff's Club de Nuit Intense, and also Armoff's Club de Nuit Intense. Yeah, I know. So this is Club de Nuit Intense Man. This is the original version. This is the limited edition. And when we're talking Club de Nuit Intense Man, there are, at this point, multiple iterations in terms of the concentration. So the Eau de Parfum version of Club de Nuit Intense Man, that's gonna be your, I guess we'll call standard at this point, your normal one. And then the limited edition is kind of a separate thing altogether. It comes in a different presentation. The bottle is a slightly different color. It says limited edition on the front, a little bit of a giveaway. But these fragrances are, of course, clones of Creed Aventus. And I would say that Club de Nuit Intense Man is probably, well, not really probably, is the most popular clone fragrance ever. It's like the Acqua di Gio of clones, or I guess you could say it's like the Aventus of clones. The opening can be a little bit off-putting to some people. It can be a little bit harsh, but as it dries down, it's really easy to wear. It has great performance. It's a big compliment puller, and the more it dries down, the closer it does smell to Aventus. I do think overall though that the limited edition is better. It's smoother, richer, smells more expensive, and has a better opening as well. So if you can find the limited edition for a pretty good price from a discounter, that's the one I would get. But at a bare minimum, you need to know Club de Nuit Intense Man. Everybody knows it. Also, the Club de Nuit line has a bunch of other flankers that are worth knowing, but I didn't want to make this just a Club de Nuit video, so these are the only Club de Nuit fragrances in this one. Now, just because Aventus, the next one is Laventure from Al Haramain. So Laventure is essentially like the permanent second fiddle of Creed Aventus clones, because this is another Aventus one. But Laventure never quite caught on as much as Club de Nuit Intense Man, even though for a lot of people, they would say Laventure is actually better than Club de Nuit Intense Man. The opening of this one is not as harsh as Club de Nuit Intense Man's opening can be. It's fruitier, it's less smoky, and so again, for some people who are looking for an Aventus alternative that is on the sweeter, fresher, fruitier side instead of Club de Nuit, which can be a little bit smoky or a little bit more powerful, they may choose Laventure instead. The quality of this is good, the price is good, the smell is good. There's a lot to like about it. It's not quite as popular, as I said, as CD and IM, but it's pretty much right there with it in terms of overall quality. Yeah. Let's throw a wild card out there. It's Celestial, which is from Emir, which is part of Paris Corner. Paris Corner is a clone house that is not anywhere near as well known as Al Haramain, Armoff, and some of the other ones that we're gonna talk about. But they do have some very nice clones available. This one smells very similar to Ganymede. Ganymede, a bit of a niche hype beast, and I would say for the price point, this is gonna be your best bet as of right now at getting a fragrance close to Ganymede for a much more affordable price. The presentation here can be a little love it or hate it with that interesting cap, but frankly, when it comes to clone fragrances, that is the name of the game. A lot of the presentations can be interesting. I'm a big fan of Ganymede. That kind of slate rock spritzed with mineral water kind of vibe, and then a bit of leather in there as well. I think it smells awesome. Really versatile, good performance. This is gonna get you that only with maybe a touch more sweetness off the top. I think the quality here though of the fragrance is fantastic, and it's a great one to know. All right, let's do a Baccarat Rouge 540 clone, because you kind of have to do a BR 540 clone, and frankly, there are insane numbers of Baccarat Rouge 540 alternatives to pick from. BR 540 probably the second most cloned fragrance in the world outside of Aventus. Now, the one that I'm gonna show you is what I think is one of the best bang for your buck alternatives to that fragrance, and it's Ana Abiyed Rouge from Lattafa. So this one you can find from discounters oftentimes around 15 bucks. So it is crazy cheap. As I said, there are dozens and dozens of alternatives to BR 540 out there, and they really run the gamut from like this, as far as price point goes, upwards to $60 on the clone side. And then you can find designer fragrances and niche fragrances that smell like that fragrance. Also, fragrance, just saying it over and over again. But because this is just 15 bucks, that's what kind of puts this over the edge for people who are just getting started, because it's not gonna cost you much at all. It gets you very close to that scent profile of Baccarat Rouge 540. And even if you've never smelled that one, you can take this one, give it a spray, give it a wear, and have a really good idea of how the Maison Francis Kurkdjian smells. That one is actually really high quality for the price point. It's kind of crazy. We'll follow that up with another Lattafa. This one is Oud for Glory. So the packaging here, it's really close to the fragrance that it's cloning, which is Oud for Greatness. So you got Oud for Glory, Oud for Greatness, yeah. And this is something that Lattafa and also Maison Alhambra, which is part of Lattafa, do fairly often. They clone a fragrance and then they clone the fragrance's presentation too. Because why stop at the smell when you can just clone the whole thing? And this is, for a lot of people out there, the best alternative to Oud for Greatness. And I do think overall that in terms of quality versus price point, that this is spot on. So with this, you have a really powerful fragrance, great performance. It has that in your face opening, that sort of sweet saffron oud punch. Some people have actually compared the smell of Oud for Greatness to the smell of Baccarat Rouge 540 because of that saffron in the open, that sweetness. But they are quite different if you wear them side by side. I don't think anybody's gonna get confused about which is which. And this one has a very heavy bottle as well. So when you hold it in your hand, you do feel like you have something of substance, for whatever that's worth. You can get a little metal plaque on the bottom there. So one thing that you're probably noticing here is that each one of these is cloning a fragrance that's highly sought after in the niche realm. And every fragrance that I'm gonna show you clone-wise today is an alternative to a highly sought after, expensive niche scent. They do have alternatives, clones, inspirations, whatever you wanna call them, of designer fragrances out there, of lesser known niche fragrances out there. I think that these are good fragrances to begin with because they are alternatives to something out there that's not really unknown. These are all knowns. The next one is from Fragrance World, and it is called Suits. So this is an alternative to Tuxedo by Yves Saint Laurent. Now there's another one out there that's very good as well called The Tux. And The Tux is by Maison Alhambra, which is right here. Both of these are really good alternatives, great options if you want something that smells like Tuxedo but doesn't cost what Tuxedo costs. Now, in terms of bang for your buck, I think that Suits is better. It's less expensive than the Tux. It's easier to find, at least as of when I'm shooting this video, than the Tux because this one sells out very often. It's not the same as the Tux. Suits is a little bit sweeter, so do keep that in mind. But I think overall, this is the best buy if you're looking for bang for your buck, the best performance for your dollar, the best smell for your dollar, but the Tux is also fantastic. So really either one of these is gonna be a great alternative to Tuxedo. Let's throw it back a little bit to Armoff's Nuit. So when I say throw it back a little bit, I mean that this was a fragrance that got a bit of hype, bit of love years back when clones really started to blow up in a big way. This is a clone or an alternative to Creed's Green Irish Tweed, which is a personal favorite of mine. It's very affordable. It's one of the cheaper Armoff clones out there. And this one came out during a time where Armoff was a little more hit or miss. So nowadays, with most Laventure, Armoff, fragrance world, whatever, with most clones from these more well-known clone houses, when they come out, there's an expectation that it's gonna be probably pretty good and close to what it's cloning. But when this came out, Armoff was a little iffy. And by a little iffy, I mean they had some truly awful, awful fragrances. They had some clones that were not good, like not even wearable. They were just bad. Now, of course, they had good ones as well, and this was one of the good ones, but they had some rough stuff. A completely different time frame in terms of clones. Technically, my bottle expired June of 2020, so over 3 years ago. Let's see how it smells, because this is one of those things where I get questions every so often. Hey, you know, are you worried the fragrances are all gonna go bad? Still smells exactly the same. Yeah, it's fine. As long as you store your fragrances correctly, you should be good, as long as there's not a problem with the bottle, like some leakage or something like that. Yeah, it smells good. So it's gonna give you that green Irish tweed scent profile. It's very fresh, clean, invigorating, and classy. Oh. Let's go back to Paris Corner with Wild and Tobacco, which is technically Emir, just like this one over here. EMIR. So what could this possibly be a clone of? It is a clone, of course, of Mancera's Red Tobacco. Red Tobacco is extremely popular, one of the most popular fragrances from Mancera, and frankly, for a niche fragrance, Red Tobacco is pretty affordable. So this is one of those circumstances where maybe it makes more sense if you find Red Tobacco at a good price to scoop the Red Tobacco, because I have seen that go for really solid prices at discounters. Now, all that being said, this is an amazing alternative. It smells very nice. The quality is there. It doesn't have a big alcohol blast off the top. It's sweet, it's spicy. It's got less of an aggressive opening than Red Tobacco. Red Tobacco can be just off-putting in the opening for some people, but man, it is amazing as it dries. This one has a little bit of a softer open, so can be a little easier to pull off, but then as it dries, it has a similar feel to Red Tobacco. So you're gonna get that tobacco, again, all those spices, the warmth, the sweetness that you expect. Last two fragrances are actually 4 fragrances. So this is the first pairing. This is Detour Noir and the Woods Collection Dusk. So these are clones of Parfums de Marly Layton. Detour Noir is the cheap bang for your buck option, and Dusk is the I want the best that I can get as far as clones go option. Between the two, Dusk is a little higher quality. It does have a nicer presentation with the magnetic cap. It's a little bit fuller as far as the fragrance itself. It has more richness to the fragrance, and it's a bit closer to really nailing Layton down. Whereas Detour Noir is extremely affordable. The presentation is ugly, and on mine, because I've given it some use, actually somehow the letters on the front just get rubbed off when you hold it in your hand. So it looks cheaper, it smells a bit cheaper, but in terms of just the best buy, if you don't want to spend that much, Detour Noir is that. So both of these amazing alternatives to Parfums de Marly Layton, which nowadays is probably the most popular niche fragrance for men outside of Aventus. Although some people would say it's more popular than Aventus. So, all right, last two are clones of Angel Share from By Kilian. Here they are, Laventure's Camera and Maison Alhambra's Kismet Angel. So essentially, these are both from the same company, because Maison Alhambra is part of Laventure. Now, the one that has gotten the most hype is Camera, and it is an absolutely fantastic alternative to Angel Share. Kismet Angel, much less well known, but just about as good also. Both of these are gonna get you that boozy, sweet scent profile that Angel Share has. Both of them big compliment pullers, and really it just kind of comes down to whichever one is available and also which one is at a better price, which typically would be this one. Camera for a long time was always sold out, but nowadays it's in stock more often, so you probably won't run into that issue. There was a time where you couldn't get this, and then Kismet Angel was available, so it was like, we'll get that one. Now they're typically both available, just this one is a little more than that one. So there we go. I know it's actually technically not 10 clone fragrances everybody should know, it's 14, but still, if you are a beginner, you're just starting to get into clone fragrances, starting to get into fragrances in general, and you're like, well, which ones are the big ones that I should know about? This is a pretty good jumping off point, though there are crazy amounts of other ones out there, like Laventure Assad for Sauvage Elixir. That one is really popular, and there's just dozens and dozens. So we'll just stop it right here with these. All right, table, you served the video well, I guess. I don't know. I just found this thing. Thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys later.